Hello and welcome to ET Edge Insights exclusive interview series. Today we have with us Mr. Ravi Bhola. He's the managing partner of KNS Partners. Mr. Bhola, thank you for being in this conversation. It's a pleasure to host you on ET Edge Insights.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Right. When we talk about intellectual property protection and enforcement, how do you see the landscape of this over the years in India?
So the landscape, in India has evolved quite a bit in the
Right.
last few years. I mean, when I started my practice good 25 years ago, we used to see very limited filing of intellectual property cases, be it patents or trademarks or copyright. Very limited amount of work was being created. So awareness was very limited. Plus, the creation of those ideas and intellectual property used to be more of global players having business interest in India, filing IP, but very limited filing from domestic players at that
Right.
point in time.
Right.
And from those days to where we are today, we've seen a sea change. One, the domestic industry and the domestic players, have been able to scale, and therefore they are filing large number of intellectual properties that they create sitting in India. Many of them have global aspirations, so they also build
Right.
IP portfolio which is global in nature. So in that context, we've seen more awareness and thereby, bringing in more digitalization. Also, as these companies build a lot of IP portfolio, the next obvious thing is how do you monetize that IP? So which
Right.
means more monetization of IPs happening, more licensing, more deals are happening around intellectual property. And lastly, even in terms of enforcement of IP issues, if I see my idea or patent being copied, today I am able to approach the court and able to get quick relief from the court. So even at the judiciary side, we have seen judiciary seeing more and more cases around IP, which means more awareness and more jurisprudence around IP. So overall, I would say a big positive change in terms of how the landscape has evolved over the last 15-20 years.
Right. Right. In the IP space, now you've been there for quite a number of years, and you've interacted with so many clients.
Right.
So, what are some of the key learnings and insights you can outline that you have got from these interactions?
Sure. So right. So I mean, of course, each client can have a very unique kind of requirement, and of course, we try to adapt to those requirements.
Right.
But if you look at the overarching scheme of things, one clearly is that we believe that as a service provider on the legal services side, it's very important for law firms like KNS to get involved at the very early stage of conversation with the client, even at times when the client is still developing the idea. So which means that we have to have a mindset of like almost like an in-house counsel, work as one team with our clients. That's one part of it. So early intervention is important. Second point is that we have to speak the language of the client in terms of, for example, we deal with clients who develop new technologies. Many of these are cross-domain technologies.
Right.
So our ability to not only provide legal advice, but also to be able to comprehend the complex technologies that they develop is imperative. So we are very mindful of that. Third, again, very important is that while we can give legal advice, how do you make it a more business savvy advice so that they can implement our legal interpretation into their business scenarios?
Right.
So these are some of the things that we try to be very mindful of as a service provider to be able to really add value when we work with our clients.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Now, in the IP space, you've been probably one of the early players, and that definitely gives you a competitive advantage.
Right.
So, how do you assess this advantage? As in, how does that help you?
Right, right. So so we were set up like 30 years ago.
Right.
So we are actually celebrating our 30th anniversary this year.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much. So the one thing clearly is that when you're in the industry for a while,
Right.
you are able to do a few things which gives you in a way competitive advantage. One part of it is you are able to build the capacity So you're able to scale over a bit of time. So today we are one of the largest IP firms in the country. So when you have the scale, you have the ability to then provide good quality service in a sustainable manner in diverse domains.
Right.
So, be it patents, trademarks, copyright, different forms of IP. But then, for example, even within patents, you have different technology domains. You have biotech, you have pharmaceutical, you have high tech, you have semiconductor, you have
Right.
automobile. So, the ability to have patent attorneys who specialize in these technical domains and, of course, have legal skill sets. So, we've been able to build that capacity over a period of last 30 years. Other part is also that the complexity in the IP issues has gone up. So being around, for a while, and the way we have run our firm, by our values, what we call as CLIPS, client first, learning and development is big part of our incentives. Running the practice with the highest level of integrity,
Right.
taking good care of people, and being socially responsible. And these values have acted as an anchor for us in terms of the way we conduct ourselves. So I think it's a mix of all these things
Right.
which give us, in a way, competitive advantage being around in the system for a while.
Right. 30 years is a long time, and you've built this property to become one of the leading in India. But I'm sure on the way there have been few challenges. So in intellectual property protection, what are the kind of challenges that come up, and how can organizations overcome those challenges?
Right. If you look at in a larger scheme of things, clearly India has done exceedingly well
Right.
in terms of legislative reforms, policy making, streamlining IP administration side of things. The judiciary also building the capacity. We have now the specialized IP courts, we call IP division, that deal primarily with IP issues. So
Right.
that way we've done quite a bit as a country and as a firm. But then, of course, as you make progress, you also aspire to do better as an industry, as a player, as a stakeholder. So now, some of the things that we believe as a country or as an industry we can do is we need to have, for example, laws around trade secrets. So that's one piece that conversations are already on. Governments is interested to have the conversation with the stakeholders. So I believe that this is one area where hopefully we'll be able to make more progress. Sometimes even on the data exclusivity side, we believe some reforms will come in. Then if you look at while administratively there have been a lot of positive changes,
Right.
capacity building at the patent office, trademark registry, in the judiciary, but how we can further clear the backlog for the older cases, let's say in the courts, is one area where I think as a country we can do more. But I think looking at the changes of last few years, I believe it's just a matter of time and we'll get there.
Right. Right.
So these are some of the issues we end up debating in the community.
Right. Mr. Bhola, very interestingly, you have put forward everything that is happening in the IP space. So, how do you see the future evolving in the coming years in this space?
So I think IP, in last few years we've seen already, seeing an exponential growth,
Right.
be it in terms of filing of intellectual property by different, IP creators, and also in terms of, I talked about the reforms we've seen, and law firms also have adapted accordingly. I believe that the exponential growth that we've seen in the last few years will continue.
Right.
We expect more talent to come into this industry. So, IP is still a very niche space in
Absolutely.
the overall legal industry, but I feel that it will scale quite a bit in coming years. I believe that more and more talent will come in, more and more digitalization will come in, and I think even in terms of judiciary side, we'll see more capacity to deal with these issues. And I think what we're also seeing is that more monetization of IP. So as I said earlier, we are seeing now more transactions where people are licensing out their technologies, licensing in their technologies. We see IP assets being bought and sold by companies based on their business interest. So, and I think even at the banking system, we are seeing banks are more willing to see IP as a collateral, for raising capitals for the organizations. So I think a lot more sophistication will come in, more scale will come in, and I think as India becomes continues to grow and become a large economy, IP will continue to play a bigger role
Right.
as we go forward. So I think overall I'm quite bullish about the future
Right, right.
will unfold.
So it's heartening to hear that it's IP is in good space. On that note, Mr. Bhola, thank you very much for your wonderful insights. It was a pleasure having this conversation with you. I wish you and KNS Partners all the success.
Thank you
you
so
very
much. Thank you so much for coming over. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much.